Hello, thank you for listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. This is Josh. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about the Anchor.fm app. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Folks, welcome to the Moist Boys Reviews. My name is Josh. Today I'm talking about the one, the only, it's the one you've been waiting for, Cats 2019. Starring Francesca Hayward, Taylor Swift, Idris Elba, Rebel Wilson, Dame Judi Dench, Jennifer Hudson, Ian McKellen, Jason Derulo, James Corden, Ray Winstone, and Ian McKellen. Just for clarity's sake, I believe I saw the unedited version, the original non-updated version. So, for instance, in my version, there were cats wearing shoes. Most of the cats, I believe, had human feet, which was distracting. And also, I think, as far as I can remember, all of the cats had human hands, which was very distracting because they are not supposed to be human. The cat costumes in this film version were created digitally. This film was directed by Tom Hooper with a screenplay by Lee Hall and Tom Hooper based on the Andrew Lloyd Webber Broadway musical. Also, T.S. Eliot Spinning in His Grave from the poems that were the inspiration for many of these songs. So with this film, the obvious, the first part to speak of is to talk about are the cat costumes or digital costumes, I guess. At no point were these costumes believable as cats. There are some times when the characters will just crawl up and down sheer faces, sheer walls or statues in ways that cats do not do, even though they do have some claws. They will climb down like just sheer surfaces that is practically impossible, and that's distracting. But at other times you're expected to believe that they are supposed to obey the laws of physics. So that is distracting. Like I said before, the human feet and hands are distracting. The cats that are wearing shoes, not only the tap shoes and or work boots that some of the characters are wearing, but like just tennis shoes a couple of characters are wearing, but seemingly for no reason. So that's distracting. I know that at some point the studio is going to re-release the film as an update patch to fix that, but I do not believe I saw that one because I was distracted the entire time, because at no time do you believe that any of these characters are cats. Sometimes they can be mistaken for like some sort of ape creatures, but that's about as close to believing these are not humans as possible. There are times when the actors will try to do things, move their bodies in a way to make you think that they are cats, but that's even more distracting. I think putting these actors in costumes and having them walk around like people that it look like cats would have been less distracting than what they ended up doing. There are times when, even though the characters are standing upright, they will like move their shoulders as if they are walking on all fours, which just looks weird. There are also times, particularly Jennifer Hudson, when she goes to walk on all fours, she's just, you can just tell she's just on her hands and knees, which is also distracting because then she has her feet sticking out the back, which cats do not do. So no matter how you cut it, these do not appear to be cats, and it's even more distracting when they try to sell it as being cats. They also have digital tails and whiskers that they try to do things with that never is believable. Sometimes they try to use the ears, but even that doesn't really cut the mustard. For the most part, the performances are flat and unremarkable. I would say the standout would be Ian McKellen, because he's portraying a real character, even though if you've ever wanted to see Ian McKellen just debasing himself by licking out of a bowl of water, then I guess this is the film for you. For the most part, though, the performances by what are generally in this non-actors are not really believable. The most distracting, just on a writing from a writing sense, is Idris Elba, who has just some really awful lines of dialogue. He'll say a catchphrase before performing some magic feat, which is always funny, but I don't believe it is supposed to be. Jennifer Hudson almost turns in a good performance until the climax of the film, when her performance goes from, on an intensity scale, from a 9 to like a 25, and it is more distracting and comedic than affecting. The lead here, Francesca Hayward, does a passable job, so there's not much I can say about her. She does fine, but nothing special. Rebel Wilson and James Corden are both absolutely insufferable as their characters, and there's not much you can say about that. They are not benefited at all by the screenplay or choreography or the special effects surrounding them. Rebel Wilson is surrounded by mice played by children that are distracting, and also in a really horrific scene by cockroaches, and not horrific purposefully, but in a really truly bizarre way. And James Corden has some really unfortunate bits. There is one point, and this is really where having human hands in the film, and not at least an attempt to make them more paw-like by just giving their hands fur, like you can see their skin and it doesn't blend with their cat colors at all. There's at one point where he just licks his human hand and pretends to rub it on his face, and that does not work at all. Even some of the composition of the special effects into the film do not really work. There are several scenes when the cats are just floating off the ground, and there are several times where this is on purpose and it doesn't look good, but there are also several times when it's not on purpose and it also does not look good. The dancing in this film, there are only one or two moments when it works well. The appeal of dance is the physicality in the space, and how the dancers are able to configure their bodies into a specific way. And when you have shaky handheld cameras and a bunch of cuts and shooting a lot of stuff from the shoulders up, that really undercuts the point of the dancing at all. There are a couple of long tracking or wide shots of dancing, and those are sometimes better, but then also you are distracted by the absolutely abominable computer graphics that there are dancing in. I think this film, instead of trying to have 30 or 40 different sets that are various sizes of scale compared to the characters, it would have been much more effective to have one large set that you could actually construct and have believable. But as it is now, you don't actually believe that they're ever in the spaces that they are trying to be in. I think the most unfortunate scene is there is a moment involving James Corden and a large bottle of champagne and as I put out on the Twitter page, if you've ever been interested in what it would look like to see James Corden, let's say, lapping up something, this would be the film that you would want to watch, but otherwise you probably want to skip it. Even outside of the film, I believe this is not a very compelling show, even not on a technical level, but just of a subjective, personal level. The songs are not very interesting. Most of them are convoluted and go on for far too long. So just as a caveat here, or whatever, but for me personally, I'm not a big fan of most musicals, because most songs take what would be one or two sentences of a conversation and turn it into a 5-minute song that ultimately goes nowhere. And I think this is even worse, as there is almost no story to the film. The film is essentially alley cats that want to fly up into the sky once a year to disappear into the clouds, I guess. So that's kind of the point of the film. That's the story. So you're really watching it for the music and the dancing. As I said before, the dancing is not particularly shot well, so it doesn't succeed there. And the music is rather unfortunate. For whatever reason, they did not update the arrangement of the music. So, and since this was created in 1981, that definitely comes through in the music. There are a lot of just some of the worst aspects of disco and pop, and some of the worst trends in music from the early 80s are brought into the film and kept in the film and not updated at any way. So it's I can't imagine that there's a lot in this film for people that don't have a very deep nostalgia for that time period and style of music, which I do not. So that did not work for me either. And then I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, because you don't really watch this film for the story at all. But the most unsettling part comes at the end of the film, when Judi Dench turns and meets your eyes and starts singing directly at you. I would say this is probably, of the two times when a film character has stared into my eyes for an uncomfortably long time, this would be the more uncomfortable of the two. So yeah, there's not a lot to recommend here. There are a lot of baffling decisions, a lot of bad decisions, and a lot of bad execution of those ideas. So I cannot say I would recommend it for watching in the theater in a large group. Perhaps if you were to watch this at home with a certain set of substances consumed, you might have fun there in a group, but I would not say this is a film that you would watch for its entertainment value. Thank you for listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. For the Cloonies for this one, I'm going to give this a 4.5 Cloonies. Do not recommend. But thank you for listening to the Moist Boys Reviews. You can check us out at Moist Boys Pod on Twitter and Moist Boys Podcast on Instagram. You can find all of our shows there. Head on over to Moist Boys Podcast. We have reviewed every single live-action mainline Star Wars film in the series. All those reviews are up over there. You can also listen to our old reviews on this channel. Please subscribe, give us a rating, follow us everywhere we are. Head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Moist Boys Podcast. And we will see you again next time.